Welcome to the Lab Report, a new series produced by Cincinnati Lab Theater. Each episode, we will explore different topics regarding theater, featuring lab company members and special guest artists. Enjoy. Welcome to episode 2 of the Lab Report, Theater in the Time of COVID. I'm your host, Tori Pate. In this episode, we will focus on how this pandemic has affected live theater and how theaters are adapting and moving forward. Hi everyone, I'm gonna get right on to it and do some introductions this evening. First up, we have Kim Popa, who is the co-founder and executive director of Pones. We have Greg Procaccino, who is the director of theater and the program director at Thomas More University. We have Tim Perino, who is the executive artistic director of Cincinnati Landmark Productions, and Elizabeth Harris, who is the executive director and co-artistic director of Cincinnati Lab Theater. Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So it has been an interesting 7 months, hasn't it?
Amen.
No.
I find it hard to believe that it's actually been 7 months
Wow.
since everything has kind of come down, because it was middle of March when we all got sucker punched and had to close everything. So
We got knocked the hell out.
yeah. So my first question, and this is for all of you, so whoever wants to jump in first, go right ahead. How did COVID affect your company? What happened to you in March when all of this came down? What's going on? Anyone want to start?
Anybody have a show going on? We had a show.
I did. I know you did, Tim. We were a week away from opening No Exits. And it's that point in the show where the kids were struggling and they were finally getting it. These and they were getting this, and they are. And they were actually anxious to do it. It was going to be a pretty good show. And then I kicked back and said, we can't do this. And I still talk to them now. They say it still stings. And that was March. It still stings.
True. Yeah, we were doing last 5 years, just a real pretty show. And we were already seeing a reluctance. You know, there was things building up in the media. So we were seeing our ticket sales were definitely depressed. And we did the first weekend of shows through Saturday. And again, it was the buzz of the problem, you know, was coming. You could hear it, see it, everything in the media was telling you that. And we had a musician call in sick. And we said, what are your symptoms? She said, I don't know what I've got, but it's not a big deal, but I don't feel well. And the deal was, if you didn't feel well, don't show up, obviously. And we canceled the show anyway. We canceled that day's show in case something, you know, if she had COVID. She didn't have any large symptoms of anything, and she did not have COVID. But at that point, I realized whether or not the governor shut us down, popular opinion, the momentum of the age here that we're in had taken away our ability to perform.
We were in the middle of rehearsals for our show that we were taking to Scotland.
Yeah.
To the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and we were also in the process of notifying those people we had chosen for, or the playwrights that we had chosen for our New Works Festival. And we were also in the process of expanding. So we were expanding our New Works Festival to include more shows. We were expanding our season to do full shows for the entire 2020, 2021 season, and everything hit, and everything, I mean, it just stopped dead. We stopped everything dead. The Fringe Festival was canceled, so our journey to Scotland was canceled. We had to decide if we were going to do the New Works Festival at all, and if so, how we were going to do it. And then, of course, every expansion that we had planned has changed. So, yeah, it was like hitting a brick wall, literally. We're going full speed ahead, and boom.
Yeah, I think so. For us, we were actually still brainstorming about what we were going to do for Cincy Fringe, and highly ironically, we were kind of doing this like post-apocalyptic end of the world show. So that felt very like, oh, we can't do that because the world potentially might actually be ending. I think the biggest shift for us has been in education, right? Because that was strange for us. We were working in multiple schools, and then to have that just kind of fall off pretty abruptly was probably the most abrupt shift for us. Sorry, I'm gonna move somewhere where I actually have some quiet.
So what have been the challenges over these last 7 months to be able to perform? So I know, like with Cincy Lab, we have been performing, but we've made changes. I know, Tim, you guys have made some pretty drastic changes in your performance. Kim, I know you did some stuff for Cincy Fringe that was, you know, very different from what you would normally do. Greg, why don't we start with you, since you were in the educational setting at Thomas More.
Right.
What have you had to do to be able to continue performances in the college setting?
It's been difficult because you have to measure what you think you can do, and then good spirited people who are concerned about health come back and say, you really can't do that because of the students. You know what I mean? You go, well, we'll try this. And so it's a series of changes constantly. Maybe Tim can speak to this, or him or anybody. You say, we'll start out doing this. And then there's a change, and there's new information. Okay, we've got to do this, and we can't do that. Then literally tonight I had another major change. We can only put 8 people in our outdoor theater safely, so we decided we're just going to tape it and not do a show for 8 people every night.
Okay.
That just came up yesterday.
Yeah.
A week ago we were told we weren't allowed to have anybody outside the bubble. That was a change. Okay, so it's been this, then that's, then this, then that. It just goes on the whole time.
Cool.
Did you say 8 as in 8? Single digits? 8?
Yes. Well, because I've got actors standing in the background of the outside amphitheater to be crowd. They're placed a certain way. We need to have 8 people away. It'd be 6 feet away from them, plus sitting in those little cement benches there. My crew came by and said, we measured it every 6 feet. We've got 8 people can sit and watch the show. Whereas Beth and Elizabeth knows, when we do our summer Shakespeare, we put 80 in there.
Mm-hmm.
We put 80. Times they are a-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the students say the same thing to me each time. We want to do something. We want to do something. Even if it's just to tape it and show it in a viewing, we want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to facilitate that as safely as possible. Yeah. What you don't want to do is say things and do things that will to spirit the student. That say, you're going to spend a year here studying theater or whatever, and you're not going to get to perform at all. So you try to be as creative as you can be, and unfortunately you do that, and another problem pops up. But you don't get. I don't think. Somebody said to me, you have 2 choices here: to give up, to give up and learn that sometimes you don't always get what you want in life, or to keep fighting until you do get what you want in life. So I have chosen to fight. I feel like I'm chasing windmills. I'm not as skinny as Cervantes, but I don't want to give up the fight. Which is why this latest incarnation will be. We will film it and have a viewing of it on campus, so the students will get a chance to perform safely and within the confines and within the guidelines of the of CDC and of Thomas More. So it really is, you have to be creative, and it can't look like it did a year ago, as Tim can attest to. It can't look like it did a year ago. I don't know when it'll look like that again, but it can't look like that. You got to deal with that. You plan for that and adopt and adapt and execute.
Yeah, for us, so I feel like Pones was uniquely situated for COVID in summertime, because part of our mission is that we don't perform on the proscenium stage. So we are out in public space. So we were able to figure out how to translate those core values of ours to be out in public space. And while we couldn't perform for the public, the dancers were adept at being not, they don't have Marley, they're on concrete, those kind of things. And so we shifted our Fringe show to be a video, which was kind of awesome. I've grown to really love this idea of dance film because it opens, and of course I'm a silver lining person, but it opens the opportunity for collaboration. We collaborated with Jairika Guest, who's an amazing spoken word poet who lives in Chicago, who we wouldn't have been able to include in our show otherwise. And we have also been able, our Fringe show that we filmed here in Cincinnati has also gone on to Minnesota Fringe and Rochester Fringe. So we've had the ability to travel, quote unquote, to other cities in a way that we wouldn't have been able to do. I mean, Minnesota Fringe is kind of something that we've been wanting to do for quite some time. And we were able to do it because of the way that things shifted. So yeah, it was, I feel like there are seeds of opportunity within this strange time. And what I really hope is that something that I'm personally passionate about, this like democratization of art, right? The idea that art isn't just for people who can afford a ticket and come and sit in a space. We'll be able to see theater, and I hope that, and dance, and I hope that maybe that can be the silver lining of COVID, is that dance and art will become more part of our neighborhoods and will be out for the public to see and experience in a way that maybe it wasn't pre-COVID. I think, all of those things are important and hold weight, but I personally am really excited about the opportunities of art being able to be shared in a different way when old institutions have to shift to think about how do we perform when we can't be in our proscenium stages.
So, so what we did, we're playwright centric. We're all about developing new works. That's what we do. And we do that in the workshop process with actors and a director. We looked at this and how can we still make this work in a way where it can be accessible to people. We actually we dug into Zoom hardcore. And we have discovered that the workshop process works well over Zoom, and our playwrights, one of our playwrights that we had in the festival, he lives in Paris. So we might not have ever gotten to work with him had it not been for Zoom. The playwright we're working with right now, he's in Louisville. We have actors that are Zooming in from Chicago to be a part of the show. So it's the same kind of thing. It allows us to expand a little bit more than we might not normally have gotten to. We've gotten those opportunities to have a broader reach of artists. And we still have our process. We have a talk back with the audience during our shows or after our shows. So that's part of our process. And we've still been able to do that with our audience. And we've gotten some really great audiences, and people really love to participate in that talkback portion. We have had challenges with Zoom and trying to manage it and make sure everybody gets in, but you know, that's part of the growing pains of this. So I hope we don't have to stay like this forever. And we are developing this as we go, so that each time we do this, it becomes more and more theatrical. We're employing those theatrical elements like, you know, sound effects and props, and then how do we have the actors connect with each other over Zoom as if they were in person. So those kinds of theatricalities. So that's what we're doing right now. It's always fun though to reimagine what we think of as theater and what we think of as performance. So
Tim, you guys have
Daytime?
yeah, it's time for you. You've really embraced the let's go outside and do a show. I mean, kind of that old school, hey everyone, let's just grab stuff and go do a show. Tell us a little bit about how the open air cabarets came about for you guys.
It was not possible for us, obviously, to go, I mean, on the theater radio dial, we have our little spot, you know, and our tends to be golden age musicals and some more modern musicals and certainly some comedies and whatnot. And I just didn't feel like those obviously fit in the current COVID world. So everything about the open air cabaret was to sort of give our audience and do what we do, but then bend everything to what the COVID protocols and whatnot would allow. So like we have an open outdoor stage on a parking lot that luckily we control. So we put out all those little chairs and tables that you saw, and we could put 140 people out there in little pods, and we could do any song from any musical plus some pop hits and stuff like that. But we rehearsed at 6 o'clock that night and went on at 8. The point was we didn't want to have to rehearse day after day after day after day with the same people in the same space, and you know, the constant exposure. Those people are there from 6. The show's over by 9:45 at the latest. That is the maximum amount of exposure they're going to get. Outdoors, of course, as far as performing, the chairs and tables are literally 18 feet apart on center because the outdoor space is that huge. So everything we wanted to do was keep the spacing, keep the protocols, which meant everything kind of had to almost, as I call it, be a pop-up performance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't let's sit around and rehearse our butts off. It was, okay, what do you got in your book? What do you got in your book? Okay, I need another pop tune. I want to get a Golden Age song in there. I'd like a song from a more modern musical. Let's make that our thing. And then we're out here for an hour and a half, no intermission, as you know, we're going to perform outdoors. So the lobby didn't get backed up. I mean, so everything we did was trying to interpret our brand for theater in a pop-up, COVID protocol-friendly way. And it's worked very well, I think, most particularly because we do get amazingly talented people who are willing to help do it, because literally we can't afford to pay anybody at all, really. On top of that, real quick, you talk about virtual. Roger Pilley and Dylan Shelton did a lot of great work with creating virtual performances through Madcap. And we could do live ones via Zoom, where, you know, the background changing and all that kind of stuff that you can do. So we did improvisational puppet shows through Zoom to some of the clients that we had already lined up. And instead of having to cancel their show, we went virtual, especially with libraries and some other spots. And so we go in virtual and they're literally improvising the puppet show. And with the backdrop, we'd say to the kids, so where do you want the puppet to be now? And you get suggestions over the chat thing, and it would say, go underwater, go grocery store, go to outer space. And we just change it. And then we had a green screen. We have a green screen down at the MEC, Metcalf Education Center. Open up the green screen, and there would be Dylan with a puppet or 3 or 5 and plus other performers occasionally. And he'd be underwater or at a grocery store. And that kind of interaction, I think, was really part and parcel to kind of obviously Madcap's kind of shows anyways, but they did a great job. We're gonna give Dylan and Roger credit. So yeah, I mean, it's a many-headed thing, but certainly the whole point of the outdoor cabaret was every protocol that we could encounter with the COVID, we looked at it, said, how do we address it? And that led to an outdoor performance with very little rehearsal. Boom, you're up, and boom, you're out.
Excellent. So my next question along with that is, how have the audiences taken to these new formats that you all have had to kind of work with over these last 7 months?
I think we've sold the hell out of the open air cabarets, and people have really, really liked it. One caveat, if it gets a little too cold at night, it gets a little rough. But other than that, it's been great. But as I think we're all going to find out, if and when things begin to grow again, you notice I did not say we go back to normal. But when things begin to grow again and there are learnings from all this that we have to incorporate, people are going to come back pretty hard. They miss it, they crave it. I certainly have found that with our patrons and our performers. People are busting to come back.
Yeah, our audiences, we weren't real sure when we took the festival onto Zoom what was going to happen. We really weren't sure whether, we were like, what do we have to lose? Let's try this and see. And we were really surprised by the response that we got. People want it. People are craving these stories. And we're a very niche kind of theater in that, we're all about new works and developing new works. And it's, the audience is part of that process. You have to have the audience feedback as part of that process. And I think it was surprising because how people are, a lot of times they wait till the last minute to buy their tickets. And so we would get people pouring in, and then we had all these people watching, and then the talkbacks. I remember one night the talkback was going so well that it was like, well, I got to stop it because it just kept going and going and going. And I was like, we're going to be here all night. Which was really great. It was really exciting that people were that invested, but I think it's because they want it so desperately. I don't think theater ever is going to go away. I don't think live performance will ever go away. That's part of, I think it's ingrained in who we are that we need that because it's that connection. We need, as people, we need this connection with each other. And that's part of what live performance gives, is that connection.
And real quick, I'm sorry to respond, but out of turn, I'm sorry.
No.
I do think we can go as virtual as we can. We're going to learn a lot, and it's going to become a dimension of what we do. I don't think there's a snowball chance in hell that people will want just a virtual theatrical experience. It is, even now, I sit here and think, well, I know you folks, us not being able to just sit around a table and do this, you miss it. And I don't think those and if someone never had it, they'd still miss it. They'd still want it.
So actually that was a really good segue into my next question, which is, why do we need live theater. Why can't we all just, I mean, because we have performances. I mean, we go to the movies all the time. We watch television. Why do we need those live in-person performances? And Elizabeth, you touched on that a little bit, but I want to hear from the rest of you about what you think. Why do we as human beings need that live experience?
Well, it started with, I mean, showing my educator chops. It started from ritual and spirituality. It was something deep within us that we couldn't even identify. But I call it the holy communion between actor and audience. But it's immediate. It's in front of you. You can change it. I can sit and watch Friends, and Ross and Rachel just don't get together, damn it. But being an audience member, I can affect what the art I'm watching by applauding, by booing. I am part of the process. You're not part of the process in Netflix. I tell my students that. I said, you are important in the relationship. You can change what's going on stage. You can alter it. You can support it. That doesn't happen in watching a film. I think that's the base of why we need it, why people miss it, why people look forward to it. There's a rapport that's created between audience and actor. There's a rapport, you know, like the applause gets the actor to keep going faster, funnier, whatever the choice is. And audiences start to create a rapport with each other. They start to enjoy the fact that they're all enjoying it, and they start to applaud together. You do that in your living room in Price Hill, and you know something's going to happen to you. But I think those three things are basic of why people are attracted to theater, need theater, want theater, and keep continuing to go to theater. Kim, what do you think?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, dance, theater, they're visceral art forms. They're not meant to be, experienced with this divide of technology between ourselves. If you're in a room and you're smelling lavender because I wanted you to feel calm, then that's part of your sensory experience. It can't happen right now in the forum that we have, right? And especially for dance, like dance is not just performative, it is, and I think true for theater too, it is social, it is ceremonial, it exists to help communities connect and to bond and to move in synchronicity. And like you're saying, the audience, becomes a collective of their own. So all of that is lacking, or at least it's shifting, right? And I'm curious as to what that means, right? To have this audience that is like a TV audience, because there are pros in some ways, right? To that of this like Netflix viewership. But I think I can only speak for myself, but the part that is lost as a performer, and I think as an audience member, is like that deep visceral catharsis that you feel when you're laughing alongside people, when you're, you can't replicate that in a non-live forum, unfortunately.
I think you're right. I think what's happened is when you watch Netflix, you watch it alone on your phone. You catch up on The Boys, which I'm watching on Prime Video, but I watch it alone. But that's not. You're right. It's not communal at all. You're watching a theater piece alone. It means your show stinks and nobody bought tickets for it. But that's beside the point. But you're right. I just realized that you watch TV alone. You watch, and that's not communicative at all. Sorry, I didn't mean to. But yeah, you're right.
It's like theater is like church. That's how I see it. It's like church, right? It's a very sacred moment where you have this magical thing that happens that you can't get anywhere else, where you have someone on stage and you have the audience and they're communicating without talking, right? Just by being there together, they're communicating. The audience is communicating with each other. The performers are communicating with each other. And it's this entire universe in and of itself in that one moment, right? And it's because we're all together, and you can't replicate that. You can't find that anywhere else. Even though Zoom allows us to be together and still get our art out, we still are missing that tactile experience of being together in the same space, that exchange of energy. And I think that that's why we need it. We are built that way, that we have to have it. Even those of us who are introverts still need to get out and be with people at some point.
I just agree with the idea that the shared experience is everything. And this situation, this pandemic, struck at that connection more than anything else. And this industry, maybe more than anything else. The only industry you see that people realize it has severed that connection for so long was things like bar and restaurants, where people came out to be together and share a common experience. Whether it's what they told stories around a table, or the story that is told is on stage and they are sharing it, and they're all, at the same time, and they're came in from the same weather. They share much more than they even realize. And then to share that experience, that emotion, that story, that's what made humans different, really. I hate to be really, really weirdsville, but I always say that. I mean, the fact that, humans told each other about their experiences, and you could assimilate that other person's experience enough to learn from it, or learn who they were, or make, whether it's your personal situation or the society or your family or your own life better, that's big and is absolutely germane to what we're trying to do. And that, like I say, COVID has struck a deep, terrible wound into
Now,
that.
I was going to ask you, Tim, do you think, not to be a buzzkill, do you think there's been some damage done to younger audience members who were coming up, and now that behavior's truncated, stopped? Do you think they'll be able to do you think again, it's part of being dramatic, do you think irreparable damage is done, or will the human spirit just always rejuvenate back to that collective experience again? I'm just curious.
I would suggest, honestly, that, they're going to be starved for it, that they don't know they're starved for it, but once they, let's say, realize that there's something beyond the technology, it'll be like a reawakening. It'll be the Renaissance,
Do you think that maybe, the silver lining of us having to move to this more technologically based version of our art form, do you think that might actually draw younger viewers in? Because theater audiences tend to skew a little old for the most part. So do you think that maybe this experience might bring younger audiences in to our theaters once we are finally able to be back and have in-person performances?
I think so. I don't think we can, even pre-COVID, I've never thought we can just expect young people to want to buy $100 tickets for something that they have no touch point for, right? Like, they can't, why would you? I'm not gonna buy a ticket to go see curling, right? I don't know anything about it. So we have to give them like an option that's out, that's accessible, and whether that's through technology, whether that's through public performance, something that's out off the proscenium. We have to invite young audiences, and we have to, I think the onus is on us as arts organizations to adapt, to bring in new audiences. And none of us would have chosen this to be the way that happens, but I do feel like it will make a lot of a lot of institutions who are very much in a pattern that makes money and feels cozy, I think it will make them think about other ways to draw in their audiences. So I think, yeah, I absolutely think it's an opportunity to recruit young artists to think about how, and young audiences to think about how people want to view art, how they want to consume it, and to have a dialogue about, like, we can shift to technology if maybe you'll shift to this way, right? This experience, and to play that game of give and take with new audiences and experiment together, right? Because it may not work. There are a lot of things that are not going to work as we try to figure out how to perform outside of the proscenium stage. And I think audiences are going to give us that space right now because they know we're just trying stuff. So why not use that as a time to see how you can provide for those audiences?
We feel very confident that our audiences are going to accept things that are different, are simpler, are more austere. Maybe as they're used to 25-person casts with us, they're going to accept shows that are 2-person casts because they're in it with us. There'll always be an audience if you know how to bridge that gap.
Yeah. So as theater people, we tend to overextend ourselves a bit. We're always in the middle of doing something. It's rare to take a break. Why didn't we all just be like, hey, we're going to take a break when all of this hit? We kept going. Why is that?
Because you can't do anything else. There's no other choice. There's no choice. I mean, quit or not quit, that's not a choice. You can't. I can't not do this.
Yeah.
I keep, it's the thing I love. It's my passion. And to stop doing it doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, in some ways we did quit, right? At least we cut back. But I mean, for me personally, that question was like, because I feel beholden as an executive director who employs people to not give up, because that's, you know, most of my dancers cobble together a lot of different gigs and work harder than anyone I know for still not enough money. So for me, the why not give up is because I owe it to my employees to still try to figure out opportunities, even in this time of, you know, of nobody's making enough money. And of course, and to not give up on maybe not even creating performance, but helping people understand how to get unemployment, helping people, we did arts and healing sessions as a team, right, to give emotional support. This happened in tandem with Black Lives Matter, right? Like, there is a lot of collective trauma that's happening, so we can't give up because everyone still needs a venue, everyone still needs money, and then still needs a vehicle to be able to emote. So yeah, I feel like that wasn't an option for me, because I want to, I just want to be able to provide for folks as long as I can and provide opportunities for people as long as I can, until someone's like, you just can't. and thank goodness that didn't happen, right? People were open to us shifting.
Kim, you read my mind. I felt responsible for the people around me, for my students, for the administration, for the school, for lab theater, because I was going to go to Scotland and direct. Tim and I, the Odd Couple. I felt responsible to these people who I love and who I work with, and say, I need to do something. But especially at school, being the educational input, I was responsible for students who were turning to me saying, what are we going to do? I said, I'll think of something. We will try this together, because you're right, Kim. You feel responsible for the people around you. I thought of all those students who who I said, come here and work here and grow here and learn here. I couldn't turn my back on them. I had to come up with something and keep coming up with something. Yeah.
I think there was no break to take because you were, in my opinion, for me, you were scared to death. You didn't know, and we still don't know. The only thing you've done is gotten more comfortable with the fear and the uncertainty, but you just didn't know. And one of my fears was something would happen, a therapeutic would come out, whatever, and they'd get some control over this thing, and we'd be caught flat-footed and wouldn't get our brains back together. And without something going, we'd be dead to water. And that does actually connect to this idea about feeling responsible. My wife and I both, we couldn't sleep for weeks for the hell. I mean, we just couldn't sleep. And that was because within the first 5 days, we had to lay off 17 people. 17 part-timers, 8 full-timers, 25 people. And we also had, as Kim says, we write between 170 to 300 contracts a year. Well, they all went out the window too. And you could have mopped the floor with both of us in the first couple of weeks. It was a shock. It was, I can describe it as anything other than brokenheartedness. And then as you started to think, what can I do? Well, all I can be is as ready as possible when the time comes, and rebuild when you get a chance.
So my final question is, where do we go from here?
Oh,
Because
hell.
we know things are not going to be the same as they were. Should they try to go back to being the same, or do we change? Where do we go from here?
You know, I think one of the great things about theater artists is that we are fantastic problem solvers and we're flexible. We have to be. When you're in the middle of a show, producing a show, you know, a billion things will go wrong. They always do. And so I think we adapt. We're flexible, we are problem solvers. And I think that's, you know, if I look at what we're looking at moving forward, and we don't know what the heck it's going to be, you know, we have no ever loving clue. So it's like true improv, right? So we have to just tune into that, be our best adapters and problem solvers that we are.
Ditto.
Yeah, I don't know what the changes will be. I just know we better be ready to make them.
Yeah.
Is it going to have to be a sense of safety? Or are we going to have to communicate that you are safe here in this environment, at this venue?
Audience and artist.
Both be the Holy Communion.
I do wonder, I think, how do we move forward? I hope that there'll be less of a, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like less of a scarcity mentality, right? People will be willing to, like, I know even in this short time, that theater, dance, like everybody's kind of pooling their resources and saying like, we're having this shared common experience. So I hope that where we go from here is a more collaborative, connected, like arts sector, in the way that we want to share what we know, share what we've learned, share our resources, right? There's less of a scarcity because we've all felt what it feels like to not be standing on firm ground. So we all want to like support each other to feel ready to move forward. I don't know, maybe that's a really glass half full idea. But I just think
I think we'd all do that anyway, but we're also damn busy, you know? Whereas here, this may have been that break you're talking about, Tori, in that both in the crisis and in the time it kind of created, we have, I think, very much reached out amongst each other, and there's been a lot of communication, a lot of best practice sharing, I've talked with more of my compatriots in this time frame than I ever did when we were like, going, no, I have another show to get the hell up, get out of my way. You know, it really is different. And maybe you're right, Kim, I'd be a great outgrowth of this if that remained somewhat in place.
All right. Well, I think that is a great place to end. So thank you all for joining me this evening. Tim, Greg, Kim, Elizabeth. It has been a wonderful evening. So thank you very much.